Screen. Yeah, I think all can see now.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter, Canto 1, 5th chapter, 7th verse. So let's chant. Tvam paryatannark iva trilokim antascharo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva. Tvam paryatannark iva trilokim antaschayo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva. Tvam paryatan ark iva trilokim antascharo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva. So we'll read the word by word translations in the transliteration. Tvam, your goodness. Paryatan, traveling. Arkaha, the sun. Iva, like Trilokam, the three worlds, Antahcharaha, can penetrate into everyone's heart. Vayu, Iva, as good as the all-pervading air. Atma, self-realized. Sakshi, witness. Para-avare, in the matter of cause and effect. Brahmani, in the absolute. Dharmataha, under disciplinary regulations. Vrataihi, in vow. Snatasya, having been absorbed in. Me, mine. Nyunam, deficiency. Alam, clearly. Vichakshva, is searched out. Translation, Prabhupada. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. And like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Purport by Prabhupada. Transcendental realization, pious activities, worshipping the deities, charity, mercifulness, non-violence, and studying the scriptures under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful. Let's read the verse again. Tvam paryatan ivat trilokim antascharo vayurivatma sakshi paravare brahmani dharmato vrataihi snatasya me nyuna malam vichakshva. Translation is, like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. So, very instructive, very powerful verse we will be discussing now. So let's do our Mangala Charana. Om Ajnanti Mirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manomishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Linta Shri Vishakhanvitam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurav Govinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So this is the last verse spoken by Vyasadeva in this conversation. And then next verse onwards, Narad Muni will start his instructions as we were going through just now. Initially, as we have seen in their earlier discussion, when they are talking to each other, they address each other about their very high parentage. Why do they do that? Means, what's the reason behind it? Can anyone shed some light on this, or can share their thoughts, please? Why they were specifically discussing about the high parentage? Narad Muni was talking about Parashar Muni, who is, if we see the high parentage there, that Parashar Muni is a son of Shakti, who is a son of Valmiki, spiritual master of Lord Ram, Vasishtha Muni. So that is the lineage Vyasadeva is in, and he is the literal incarnation of the Lord. And as we can see, in case of Narad Muni, he is a direct son of Lord Brahma, who is a grandson of the Supreme Lord himself. So they are talking about a very high parentage, about their lineage, seminary lineage we are talking about here. So why do they address that? The reason is samskara are very important. The discipline under which the child is born and brought up is very essential. And the parents are the first guru of the spiritual masters. So they're addressing each other that you are such a great personality and you have such a high parentage. So they're not just praising each other. It's addressing the great personalities in the high parentage that brings blessings, that brings auspiciousness. And there are innumerable reasons why we should talk about the acharyas, the great personalities, and the high parentage of the great personalities. One of the important reasons is it brings auspiciousness and it reminds us the samskaras, the essential discipline given by our parents. So, very important point we should consider here. The second aspect, which is eva, is the word which is used here and as well as here. Vayur evatma sakshi. Eva means like. So, in this instructive verse, what it talks about, it's the two times the eva used is the spiritual knowledge needs receptivity. And that's where the analogy is used of sun and the air. So sometime back we talked about the three important principles in Ayurveda when we discussed about the Lord Dhanvantari. The most important principle in Ayurveda is what? Can anyone shed some light? It's Vayu. Kapha, Pitta and Vata. There are three important principles in Ayurveda, and that's what our body is made of. So, Kapha is mucus, the Pitta is the bile or the acid in our body, which is the power, which has the power of digestion, and Vayu, which is Vata. The Vata is the most important principle. Because of that, we can move around. I can speak, we can think, the blood circulation, everything is happening. Our air we breathe, everything is happening because of the Vayu. And it's a very, very important principle. And that very beautifully, very poetically, Vyasadeva is using here. So sun is in our scriptures, several times sun is used as a for the analogy as the greatness of, so for so many things. Our whole lineage comes from Vivaswan, the sun god. Imam Vivaswate Yugam Proktavahanam Avyayam. So the first Bhagavad Gita was given to Vivaswan, the sun god. Sun has a very, very important principle and as well as the personality in our lineage. So sun can reach anywhere. Sunlight can reach anywhere, directly or indirectly. In our food is also, there is a sunlight. And because of sunlight, the food grows. We need sunlight for literally everything. And that's the principle which is used Iva. And that like, what he says is, like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. So that's the first point here is the sun, which gives us the heat as well as light, is so essential, and that's where Vyasdev says your goodness can travel. So he talks about earlier they talk about the parentage, and then they talk about the goodness, the essential aspect of discussion, right? The analogy should be used properly, and it's not a false praise. It's the the personality as well as the qualities which are discussed here. Vayu is a demigod, which is indirectly an expansion of Lord Shiva himself, and who is there in our body. So again, that principle is discussed very aptly in this particular verse. The next important point is, we will come back to the Vayu principle little later again. Here Vyasdev is taking a very, very humble position, similar to Arjun, where Arjun says that, yes, Karpanya dosho pahatas svabhava, I'm a fool. Prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. Mudha means fool. Now I am asking you. I don't have a full capacity to understand this situation. That's what Arjuna is saying in 2.4 in 2.7. Prichhami tvam, I'm asking you. Dharma sammudha chetaha. Now guide me for the disciplinary action. And here again we can see the principle dharmataha, under disciplinary regulations. Very similar pattern of the question here. Dharma sammudha chetaha. Yachreya sannis prohishchitanme. So he's asking that now I am your disciple. Shishyasteham chadimam tvam prapannam. So please guide me. And here Vyasdev is addressing his spiritual master with the same principle. And how they are asking? By very submissive, very humble attitude. What was that? Yesterday, Her Grace Divya Gaurangi Mataji has mentioned the verse Tadvidya pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadakshinaha. So we should inquire to our spiritual master with a very humble mood, that please guide me. Srila Rupa Goswami gives a very, very important instructions. There are 4 steps how we should be, our dealings should be with the spiritual master. First is, we should request our spiritual master to accept as a disciple. Second is, we should humbly request for initiation. Third is, we should serve the Guru very diligently by following the instructions. And the fourth one is, we should submissively ask for improvements. And we can see Vyasdev is following exactly the same principle here. He is saying what? Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, the last principle. Now the first 3 he has already perfected. And the last one, submissively asking for improvements. Despite my being absorbed in transcendence and the disciplinary regulations and all. So yes, Narad Muni also glorifies Srila Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva says, yes, I am absorbed in the transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows, but still there is despondency. Still, I am not satisfied. And that's the important principle. In the purport, why Srila Prabhupada gives the certain important points here, transcendental realization. And Srila Vyasadeva has that transcendental realization. Very important point. We should, that Prabhupada is basically giving us the qualifications for the receptivity of the proper knowledge. So we should seek for transcendental realization, and we should actively try to make progress for transcendental realization. What this means is, I think earlier we talked a few times about what is Brahman. The first is the taking the initiation from the spiritual master, seeking for his blessings. Second is studying the scriptures very diligently. And the third one is, the third aspect is to practice the spiritual principles, which is following the austerities of word, mind, and body, mind, and soul. So, and then we will have the transcendental realization. Second is pious activity. Our every activity, even if for our material sustenance, should have very high moral principles. And obviously, as Prabhupada says, we should dovetail our propensities for the service of the Lord. Worshipping the deities, that is very purifying, because automatically it brings the principle of cleanliness, right kind of thinking, and so many other things. Discipline, very important. Those who are doing deity worship, they can easily relate to this. Then charity. The mind should be charitable. How it should be, the charity need not have to be only in terms of money. As our favorite personality used to quote, His Grace Shuddhidharma Prabhu. The lowest one is money, at least we should give that. Second one is time, and the third one is our austerities. And that is the charity we should follow, we should offer to our sampradaya, to our lineage. Mercifulness. Mercifulness is for everybody, not only for our beloveds and only for the person whom we like. It should be against the people whom we dislike as well. That is very difficult, but that's not a choice according to Shastra. Non-violence means, today this morning when we were doing service, Prabhupada was giving, there was a lecture Prabhupada was giving, and Prabhupada said, non-violence doesn't mean just being vegetarian. But just being vegetarian is also sinful. If we are not cooking for Krishna, that means we are violent. So right up to the basic point of eating as well, there is a violence involved. And that is why studying the scriptures and following the proper principles of how we eat, how we earn money, how we purify that money by donating it, and by distributing the knowledge to others. Very important. Everything involves non-violence here. And studying the scriptures, of course, that's what we are trying to do every day here, under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful. And that's what Srila Vyasadeva has given earlier in all his script, in all the details. What has he written before writing this Srimad Bhagavatam? He has written 4 Vedas, Upavedas, and then Upanishads, Itihasas, Puranas, everything he has written, Vedanta Sutra, Vedangas, and everything he has written. And still he is not satisfied. And that's what Prabhupada is explaining here, that studying the scriptures under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful. Randomly or very whimsically, we cannot study the scriptures. It has to be in a disciplinary manner, as per the Guru Parampara. And that's what Rupa Goswami tells in our in Updeshamrit. Tattat karma pravartana. That means following the footsteps of our acharyas. How they have told us for the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, regulated devotional service and the studying of the scriptures and following our lifestyle. That is very important. Studying the scriptures is not just being a scholar, but studying the scriptures is again the realization. Following the austerities as per the rules written in the scriptures under the strict disciplinary regulations. So very, very important points. I'm aware that we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to discuss too many things in this discussion here. So next point we will go for is Srila Vyasadeva is glorifying the spiritual master. And here, the important principle of the takeaway is the literary incarnation of the Lord, Srila Vyasadeva himself, with such a high, powerful lineage and the parentage, sets the example of how to pay respects to his spiritual master, how to be humble, and how to ask the questions, and how to be receptive even for pleasant and unpleasant advice which may come from the spiritual master. Very fascinating, or the important point we should be considering here is, a lot of times we are looking for comfortable lies rather than the unpleasant truths. And that's Vyasadeva is setting an example here. So let's discuss about the glories of Sripad Narad Muni. Such a great personality he is, because this is the verse basically talks about the glories of Sripad Narad Muni. One of the Mahajans, one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. This is the conversation between two Mahajans. Sripad Narad Muni is also Mahajan and Vyasadeva is also Mahajan. Mahajano yena gatastha pantha. We should follow the footsteps of Mahajan. So second point is, he is the representative of the Lord and has many divine qualities of the Lord. He obviously, why Lord has given him these benedictions and the divine qualities, because he uses these qualities to enhance the pastimes of the Lord and to glorify the Lord. He's a perfect example of the spiritual master. I'm sure all of you have listened to the lectures of Narad Muni's pastimes and how he glorifies the Lord and how he preaches the his transcendental vision and his instructions to all his disciples. He has a very unique set of disciples, and we will, if time permits, we will come to that as well. Like Vayu, Sripad Narad Muni can enter anyone's body. So as Lord can enter in our intelligence, in our mind, in our body, Upadrashta Anumantacha Bharta Bhakta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapyukto Dehesmin Purushaha Para. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord says this, that I am the enjoyer of everybody's body, Upadrashta Anumanta, and I am giving the permission to fulfill your desires. Upadrashta Anumantacha Bharta Bhakta Maheshwara. I am the supreme enjoyer. You are just a desirer. Paramatmeti Chapyukto. He is sitting as a Paramatma in our heart. Dehesmin Purushaha Para. So somebody who is not related to this body, still he is sitting here in the body just to fulfill our desires, to permit our desires. So Sripad Narad Muni has the similar quality. He can enter anyone's mind, he can enter anyone's body and intelligence, which is quality of the Lord or the Paramatma. And why? It is a benediction given by the Lord himself, like a super soul. And that's what Srila Vyasadeva is addressing here. Like the sun, your goodness can travel anywhere in 3 words. And like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive super soul. That is Paramatma. Yeah. So he has that quality. Now, why Narad Muni specifically has this quality? Because he's such a great devotee. Uh, for a reason, Lord empowers the great devotee um, to uh, as a matter of compassion to all the living entities, to the conditioned souls, and also to enhance the pastimes of the Lord. So both purposes are fulfilled by the Lord by giving such a great benedictions to his beloved devotees. And uh, so important point is, because he's a spiritual master and such a great devotee, he is fully empowered to give devotion, to give bhakti, to give prema to anyone. Of course, he knows who is qualified and who is not qualified, but out of that compassion, as long as the person has receptivity, he can give devotion to anyone. He can give bhakti to anyone. And a perfect example is Valmiki Muni. Earlier, he was just a hunter, and because of Narad Muni, he gave the correct instructions, and finally he became the great personality, Valmiki Muni. So we can see who are his disciples. Dhruva Maharaj is his disciple. Valmiki Muni is his disciple. There is a snake who is also his disciple. There are so many examples of Narad Muni being a spiritual master and instructing different type of people for the path of devotion. He's always on the pilgrimage. There is a reason, there is a pastime why he he's always on the pilgrimage and always preaching the glories of the Lord. There was a curse by Prajapati Daksha, and that's why he's a perfect example of renunciate. So he took that curse as a benediction and said, yes, that's the curse which will help me to glorify the Lord, to preach the glories of the Lord. So what he talks all the time, he's chanting the name of the Lord, Narayan, Narayan, and at the same time, he is discussing the pastimes of the Lord. And that's the example, Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. He talks about the Lord, he thinks about the Lord, and he glorifies the Lord in all the possible circumstances. Kathayantascha mam nityam, Lord says that. His devotees always talk about his glories, his pastime. Mam nityam tushyanticha ramanticha. And you can see here, Narad Muni is completely contented. He's completely satisfied. Tushyanticha ramanticha. And he's engrossed in that all the time. So Narad Muni's qualities are, he has all the qualities, how he received all the benediction and all the qualities, the perfection of his devotion. That's again confirmed by the Lord in the 10th chapter again, the next verse after Machita Madhyata Prana. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. The person who is always connected, always thinking Tesham to that person, satata, continuous, yuktanam, he's connected to me. He's bhajatam. How? He's always thinking about me, bhajan. He's always discussing about me. He's singing the glories of mine. So how? Priti purvakam, with full of love. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. And Lord says, I'll give that person the correct intelligence, yenamam upayantite, so that he will always remain connected and he will get, that means indirectly, he will receive the necessary qualities from me to give bhakti to the conditioned souls, and that's what Narad Muni is doing here. So that's the glories of the great devotee of who is Narad Muni here. Srila Prabhupada answers the prime duty of the Guru, and what is the prime duty of the Guru, of the spiritual master. And we can see in case of Narad Muni here, he is following the instructions of his spiritual master or his father, we can say. How Lord Brahma is following the instructions from the Supreme Lord, um, Narad Muni is receiving instructions from Lord Brahma himself, and he is following those instructions very, very diligently, and he is passing it on to his disciple, Srila Vyasdev. The one important takeaway we can think of here, if we want to take instructions from seniors, I think we talked about it briefly earlier, we should be ready to both accept unpleasant and unpleasant instructions. And that's where we just read up to 20 verses that Narad Muni is going to do bit of a chastisement that whatever you have given till now, people will misuse it for sense gratification because there is no proper instructions for the people to accept the Supreme Lord as a person. And that's what Narad Muni is going to give that later on. And how it should be that the verse, the 17th verse, त्यक्त्वा स्वधर्मचरणाम्बुजं हरेर्भजन्नपकोतपते ततो यदि यत्र को वा भद्रम अभुदमुष्य किम कोवार्थ आपतो भजताम स्वधर्मतः, where Narad Muni says that let's read that verse. Yeah. So one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, but yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So what Narad Muni is emphasizing here, the importance of devotional service. Though it is not perfect, we don't have to be saying that, oh, my bhakti is not very proper. Doesn't matter. But still we have to continue. And that's what Narad Muni's instruction is. One who has forsaken his material occupation. We don't have to say that, yes, I'm going to do all my daily activities imperfectly. That's not the point here. What he's saying is, we have to connect our all activities for the purpose of devotional service. So that's what Narad Muni is saying here. Of the Lord may sometimes fall down. We may not be able to do it properly in an immature state, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, a person who is trying to do everything perfectly for sense gratification, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. Very important point. So a lot of times people want some sort of confirmation that what they believe is the truth, rather than what is the actual instruction as per the scriptures. And that's a very important point we need to consider, we need to take away from this first 20 verses, what were chanted and discussed in just we read the translation of that. The prime reason for our false ego is to justify how our efforts for material comforts and sense gratification, especially what Lord says is lust in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is correct. That's what our false ego will try to justify, and we have to be careful about it. And that's the reason the important points or the instructions of both pleasant and unpleasant, we may like, we may not like, from our spiritual master, we should be ready to receive. That receptivity is very, very important. And that's the point here. Vyasdev is saying, please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Such a humility, Vyasdev, is getting reflected here from Vyasdev. So those are the important points from this. Then in the 8th verse onwards, Narad Muni will ask the reason for his despondency, and he will say that his sense of all Vedas, Upavedas, Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, Itihasas, Upanishads, it the essence has to be written, which you haven't done yet. And the important point he will emphasize is God is the supreme transcendental personality. Uh, God is not impersonal, and that's what Narad Muni will emphasize later on. Throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, we will hear Narad Muni's most important instruction that it's a Sambandha Jnana. We are small Jivatma, he is the Paramatma, he is the super soul, he is the supreme Lord, and he is a person. We are eternally personalities, and he is also supreme personality, and there is a relationship. That's what Narad Muni will establish hereafter. And that the point is, our relationship with Lord is very personal, and to establish that relationship, he needs to be glorified. That needs to be understood first. So that's what I wanted to discuss in this short span of time. We have 3 to 4 minutes. If there are any comments or any questions or any additions. Yesterday, Divya Gauranga Mataji has given a very important point about Srila Radhanath Maharaj, that we have to follow everything diligently, even if our spiritual master is not in touch with us. And that's a very important point, again, discussed here. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive super soul. So Lord empowers the spiritual master to understand the mood and what disciple does. Very important point. Thank you very much, Mataji, for that. It was a great reminder. So that's basically it. Again, I have eaten up 1 more minute. So if there are any instructions or comments or any questions, we can discuss about that. If not, then I think there is going to be a song which is going to be sung by Mataji. Is there any question or comment? If not, then we will stop here. And Jyoti Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, I've got the bhajan on the screen.
Yeah.
And I will start with the translation, and then Mataji will sing the bhajan.
Okay, yeah, okay. I will go for mute and stop my video sharing. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, brothers, my Nitai's mercy is limitless. He wanders village to village, giving love of God to one and all. He always jokes with Advaita Acharya. His whole body is made of love for Gauranga. He is always intoxicated with the divine mood of love. Thus is unable to walk properly. He raises his arms and sings Haribol, and he sheds tears from his 2 lotus eyes. Sri Nityananda is adorned with the tilak on his forehead. He has curly hair matted with red berries. A blue belt encircles his lion-like waist. His feet look red. He wears ankle bells on his reddish feet always, making a tinkling sound. His beauty enchants the whole world. He smiles and laughs while in the divine mood of love. Lord Nityananda Prabhu is my master. He is full of nothing but pleasure. This Vrindavan Das sings his glories. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I shall start this bhajan, Are by Nitya Mara. It's a Bengali bhajan. The author is Vrindavan Das Thakura. Hare Krishna. Are by Nitya Mara. Dayara Badi. जीवारे करुणा करे देशे देशे फिरे फिरे Prema Tanaya Chanirabadi Advaita Sangaranga Taranaya Yanga Gaura Prema Gadata Nukani Duliya Duliya Chale Pautili Hani Bole Donayana Bani Tapani Kapal Tilak Shobe Kuntala Kuntala Lole Kunjara Andana Churataya Keshari Jinaya Kati Kati Tata Niladati Pajananu Pararanga Paya Ubana Mohana Bese Majalila Sabadeshe Rasa Bese Yata Yata Hasa Prabhu Mora Nityananda Kevalaya Nanda Kanda Gunagaya Vrindavana Dasa Aribhai Nitaya Mara Dayara Avadi Jivane Karuna Keri Deshi Deshi Firi Firi Prema Tanaya Chani Rabadi Nityananda Ram Nityananda Ram Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Shri Nitai Gauranga Hari Bol Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice.
So, are we going to stop now? If there is nothing else, then
Yes, Prabhuji, if there's no more questions or reflections or comments, we
Yeah.
can end the class.
yes. Okay.
Sure. Vanchakalpa Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.